Welcome to our first webinar in our new webinar series, Let's Talk Workday. Today we'll be discussing all things automation and how you can get more value out of Workday's automation and AI features. Alrighty then. Now I'd like to introduce you to our speaker, Eddie Zhao. Eddie, over to you.
Cool. Thanks, Kate. Hey, everyone. My name is Eddie. I am a manager in the Workday financials practice here. I've been with the company for coming up on a year now, but I've been in the Workday ecosystem for over 6 years, mainly working on Workday financials with a couple of different firms, right? Focusing on the procure to pay space, order to cash, as well as all the other functional areas. So excited to be talking about Armanino and automation in Workday today. So for today, we're going to start with just a brief overview of Armanino and the actual company. We'll go through some automation 101, right? Just to give a background on what automation in Workday means. I'll talk a little bit about AI and how I think that'll affect Workday and businesses that currently use Workday and may potentially use Workday. And then we'll go through any questions and answers people might have. All right, so just to tell you a little bit about Armanino, we are a CPA and consulting firm that operates mainly in the US, but also in India as of recently. I like to say that Armanino is probably the biggest CPA and consulting firm that you've never heard of. We have 2,700 plus employees in 45 states. We're the 18th largest CPA and consulting firm in the US. So you can see here, right? Our headquarters are in San Ramon, California, so right outside of San Francisco, but we have offices in all the locations listed there on that screen right there. And then for Armanino's Workday practice specifically, right, which is just one small part of the firm, we are an official Workday Services partner, right? And this includes financials, HCM, and adaptive planning. Collectively, we've gone through over 140 full length or full cycle Workday implementations, right? So a lot of experience under our belt. And that includes full platform experience, right? And then in addition to our traditional Workday deployment services, we also offer managed services as well as post-go live support for existing clients and any new customers. Sorry, if you could go back real quick. Thanks. So the Armanino solution, I'll talk more in detail about that on the next slide. But at Armanino as a whole, we have over 6,000 clients that bring technical, functional, and industry expertise in a variety of industries. And like I mentioned before, right, we are nationally recognized. We are a top 20 consulting firm. On the Workday team itself, we have 40 plus certified consultants. We are 100% onshore. And then all of our project managers, our consultants, and our integration developers are officially certified in Workday with experience under their belts. Cool. Now you can go on to the next slide. Thanks. So just a little bit more about the Armanino solution and what differentiates Armanino from some of the other Workday partners in the ecosystem, right? So Armanino is a finance, accounting, and HR consulting firm, right? And these are the three different pillars of experience that we bring when it comes to your Workday deployments, right? So number one would be the technical experience that our Workday consultants have, right? So that would be me. I'm Workday Financial Certified. I've implemented 20 plus projects in different industries when it comes to Workday. And then my colleagues, right, have similar levels of experience in the Workday ecosystem. So we understand how the system works. We understand how to configure different setup in the Workday ecosystem or system when it comes to your requirements. In addition to that, right, Armanino also offers functional support. So we have teams dedicated to making sure that your end user experience is up to standard, right? So we have consultants that have actual Workday end user experience, people like accountants, CFOs, controllers, right, who have worked in the Workday system on an end user level before. They're able to bring that knowledge and understanding of the system to our deployments, right? And then finally, we also have our industry best practice knowledge, right? So we have business leaders in the organization who have been a part of various businesses in a multitude of industries, right? So people who understand best practices when it comes to the construction industry, people who understand best practices when it comes to the healthcare industry, right? So Armanino is able to bring those business leaders in and give recommendations when it comes to what should be done during your Workday deployment. So this is kind of what differentiates Armanino from different partners, right? While some partners might only have one of these and can only bring one of these um, pillars to the table, Armanino can bring all three. All right, so moving on to automation within Workday, right? So when it comes to talking about automation within Workday, right? I want to preface this by saying, AI is part of automation within Workday, but it's not all of it, right? There are different aspects of automation. Obviously, it includes it, right? But there are a lot of different parts of automation in the system that can really benefit the user. So this is split into 4 different areas, right? Starting with process automation, which in my mind is probably the most important area. So this is what you want to think of as your business process framework, right? So depending on what kind of business you operate in, right? Making sure that your day-to-day operation and any business related events are going to the right resources at the right time, right? While providing a comprehensive audit trail of any changes made during the life cycle of that transaction, right? So if you think about, let's say, your procure to pay process, right? Or your order to cash process, right? Making sure that all of those end-to-end processes are set up in a smooth and efficient manner. So if we think about the procure to pay process and we want to talk about, let's say, setting up purchase requisitions, right? During the deployment, we want to make sure that we set up your approval process for your purchase requisitions to make sure that any requisitions created in the system are going to the correct people, right? Whether or not that's the requester's direct manager, a cost center manager, a project manager, right? Setting all of that up on the back end improves efficiency when it comes to actually using the system, because you don't have to worry about requisition going to the right or wrong people, right? So that way, number one, you're spending your money correctly, and then number two, the risk of errors occurring when it comes to data being entered on those requisitions is reduced. Another important aspect of this process automation here is being able to configure it, right? So as your business grows, adapts, acquisitions happen, right? These business processes may need to change, and Workday allows you to do that, right? In an easy and efficient way to kind of continue that level of process automation when it comes to your business processes. Number 2 is data quality. So when we think of data within Workday, right? Foundation data model. So how you set up your work tags, your cost centers, how you set up your chart of accounts, right? But in addition to that, your customer data when it comes to creating customer invoices on the revenue side, right? Your supplier data and banking information when it comes to the procure to pay module, right? Ensuring all of that data is clean and brought into the system efficiently is a part of automation in a Workday, right? So there are different processes we can set up on the back end to ensure that any data that's coming in is clean. Any data that, shouldn't be brought in is not brought in. Custom validations, which are essentially rules and logic we can set up to require certain data fields be entered or prevent certain data fields from being entered. That's one of the ways we can ensure data quality, right? So for example, if we go back to requisitions, ensuring that an item description and a memo field is required to be entered by all purchase requisitioners in Workday, right? Make sure that once that requisition moves to the next step in the approval process, that person's manager or the cost center manager knows exactly what that requisition is being for, right? So then that way, there doesn't need to be any back and forth on people asking, what is this for? That requisition can be approved and moved on to the next step in your business process. Same thing with related work tags, right? That's another way to ensure that all data on a transaction is being captured correctly, right? It's a way to default certain fields onto a transaction, like let's say an expense report, to number 1, reduce the amount of time needed during data entry. And then number 2, ensure consistency and accuracy when people are entering their data, right? And that's really important when all of your work tag data ends up on reports that you're running, right? That you look at on a daily, monthly, weekly basis to help improve your business. Moving on to security, right? Within Workday, you're able to set up domains and business process policies on the back end to essentially give specific security groups and any employees who are assigned to those security groups access to specific reports and tasks within Workday, right? So when you think about segregation of duties, you have your accounts payable team, right, who may have access to certain accounts payable related reports, right, and tasks such as creating supplier invoices that should be part of a different group compared to your accounts receivable team, right, who's responsible for creating customer invoices and handling disputes with those, right? So the automation aspect of that come into play in Workday when you set all of that up on the back end. So moving forward, you only need to deal with making sure the correct people are assigned to those security groups, and you don't need to worry about the backend configuration and making sure people have the right access to one specific report or one specific task, right? It's all automated based on the different actual functional areas that are set up. And then finally, we have integrations, right? Workday is a big system, but obviously there are many other systems that clients use that they choose to keep when deploying Workday, right? So those systems need to be integrated with Workday, and automation within Workday allows for a seamless end-to-end process with those third-party systems in Workday so that any data that needs to be brought in can be brought into Workday in an automated fashion, and any data that needs to be sent from Workday to another system can be automated as well, right? So this saves you a lot of time when it comes to, let's say, dual entry, right? You don't want to be entering, let's say, supplier invoices or expense reports into two systems, right? Automation in Workday allows you to do that in one system and have that data flow seamlessly between both Workday and that other system. All right, so AI, new hot topic, right? A lot of buzz going around. And, there's a lot of fear that AI will replace many of our jobs, right? Fully automate a lot of the tasks that we do. And I think the issue with thinking about AI like that is that this isn't a one-to-one of tasks that can simply be replaced, right? If you think of the example that's shown in the picture here, right? Horses and cars. When cars were first introduced and first started getting popular, we didn't simply replace every horse with a car, right? We fundamentally changed the way we traveled. We changed the way we shipped things. We changed the areas we went to, right? And we changed how we enjoyed life and lived our lives, right? So when cars came about, sure, there were changes, but with cars came a ton of jobs and a ton of changes to the way we live lives. So if we think about AI, we want to think about it in a similar way, right? Sure, it'll change the way we do things, but we need to think of the scope of the impact, and we need to understand how we can use it to create a positive impact and how we can incorporate it into our lives to benefit us, right? At this point, avoiding it is impossible, right? It's ingrained in our lives, but we need to understand it and we need to understand how to apply it because that's going to be necessary. And here and with Workday, the AI offerings that we have are designed to amplify, right? Not replace human decision making by providing recommendations and predictions based on past data that we have, right? In order to help people make better informed decisions. You can see here, right? This is based on a study done in 2023, but I think it's still relevant now, right? 90% of professionals are excited to embrace AI, but 49% of professionals are worried they should know more about AI than they do. And 39% of global professionals have admitted to pretending they know more about AI to seem in the know in front of teammates, right? And excitement over AI is at an all-time high, especially now, right? But a lot of times people don't understand what it means and don't understand what it does, right? And also may not fully understand how to use it efficiently and effectively, right? And I think that's where a lot of the fear around AI comes in. So our job and using AI within Workday, right? Part of that would be to help businesses kind of fully utilize AI to the best of its ability, right? And help businesses understand how to use it to effectively help their business. All right, and looking at this chart right here, right? I think this is a way to frame our mindset around AI, and a great way of envisioning these tasks is to contrast the quality of work and the amount of effort that we need to spend, right, to either deploy Workday or benefit and help our business grow, right? So without AI, you can see a lot of times we start at in that average level, and then we spend a lot of time trying to improve efficiencies, improve your business processes, right? Spend a lot of time in that good section, and we deliver great results, right? Which is still good, but it can always be better, right? Outstanding, occasionally we see that happen, but it's still rare. Now, with AI, the big advantage is that you kind of skip that average step right there and you start in the good section, right? So you're already reducing the amount of manual effort that you need. You're reducing a lot of the non-value add tasks and time that we spend a lot of our time on without AI, right? And you start in that good section, you move on to the great section, which is where we spend a lot of our time taking a look at requirements and seeing how we can improve your business, right? Using those AI tools, and then ultimately delivering results in that outstanding triangle down there. All right, so these are some of the delivered AI features by SKU here within Workday. You can see here it's separated by the different functional areas, right? So we have HCM on the left-hand side, some cross-functional features in the middle right there, and then financials on the right-hand side. I'm not going to go through every single one of these, right? It's a lot, and I'm a financials guy, but just to give you a overview of some of the ones that I've seen most commonly used on the financial side. Supplier invoice automation is one of the big ones, right? So using AI and having Workday be able to ingest supplier invoices through an external email inbox where your suppliers will send their supplier invoices, right? Having those PDF copies of those invoices be brought into Workday automatically and then scanned using Workday's OCR functionality, and then having Workday's AI machine learning tool essentially translate all the data that was scanned on that invoice into Workday speak is a huge time saver, right? So taking that PDF copy of the invoice and having data fields like the company, the supplier, the amount, but in addition to those, Workday specific fields like spend category, like cost center as a work tag, right? Like project, having those be automatically brought on to the invoice in Workday is a huge benefit to AP teams, right? Because a lot of time and a lot of effort is spent on manually entering those pieces of information into invoices, and the room for error is pretty high, especially when the volume of those invoices is high, right? So that's a huge change. That's really beneficial for businesses, right? On the procurement side, when it comes to creating purchase requisitions, right? Workday is able to give spend category recommendations over time as it learns the type of requisitions you're creating, right? So let's say someone who works at a hospital creates a purchase requisition to order additional offices or order additional hospital supplies for the emergency room, right? Over time, when that worker is creating that purchase requisition, Workday is going to give them a recommendation on what spend category to enter, right? And what work tags to enter. So that way, that worker wouldn't need to scroll through a list of spend categories or remember every time to enter that spend category. It'll be more automated, which number one, reduces the amount of time they spend on entering these purchase requisitions, freeing up their time so they can start doing more value add activities, right? And number two, it also reduces the risk of error when it comes to entering that data. So those are just a few examples of some of the delivered AI features that are currently available, right? There's more to come over the upcoming years as the technology advances, right? But a lot of good stuff here, and you can get a lot more information on this on Workday's website. Well, with that being said, I think that's everything I had for today. Appreciate everyone's time.
Thanks, Eddie. Now we can open up the floor to Q&A. If anyone has any questions, we can take you off of mute and you can ask Eddie your questions live, all things related to Workday automation. Or if you don't want to come off mute, feel free to drop one of your questions in the chat. Did have two questions that came through our registration that we can also cover as well if there are any questions from the group here. Just give it a minute for folks with their questions. Well, let's start with one of the questions that came through at registration. So one of the questions, Eddie, was what are the most widely adopted AI features you are seeing clients uptake?
Yeah, good question. So I would say the one I just spoke to, so supplier invoice automation via OCR, right? That's one of the biggest ones. The actual setup and configuration of it is not simple, I would say, but it's not a heavy lift and it provides a ton of benefit when it comes to teams that or businesses that receive a high volume of supplier invoices, right? Just because of number one, the amount of time it saves when it comes to manually entering supplier invoices. And then number two, the reduced risk of data being entered incorrectly. The second one that I've seen a lot is expense receipt scanning, right? So similar to scanning supplier invoices, Workday is able to scan receipts that you get from, let's say, a coffee shop, right? Or a restaurant. And then similar to supplier invoice OCR, it can translate the data on that receipt into an expense report within Workday. So over time, right, it's going to learn potentially what expense item to enter onto the expense report, the amount, and some other work tag fields, right? So just again, reducing the need to manually enter expense reports and saving end users a lot of time.
Great, thanks. Let me see. There's one question that came through. Eddie, thanks for hosting this webinar. Are these AI capabilities that you mentioned already currently offered by Workday, or are these potential enhancements coming into the system?
So everything that I just spoke to and everything that was on that page that showed the different capabilities, those are currently offered by Workday. And then there is a roadmap of potential enhancements coming into the system, but everything that I did just mention is currently available, yes.
Great, thank you. One more question for you, Eddie, that came through during registration. What can our organization do to prioritize AI investment?
Yeah, good question. So I think there's two things to focus on, right? Number one is focusing on your day-to-day operations and how AI can benefit your business on a day-to-day operation life, right? So think about the transactions that you create every day, right? Think about which transactions offer the least amount of value or which tasks offer the least amount of value, take the most amount of time or effort, right? So I keep on bringing this up, but supplier invoices, right? That's one of the things where I see the most benefit when it comes to AI, just because it's time consuming, right? And it's necessary to enter supplier invoices, but it's not the most value add activity, right? So being able to take time away from that, right, while still having those invoices be created and having your team focus on other higher value tasks is very important, right? So just trying to find instances in your day-to-day business operations that AI can really help with. And then number two is the culture change, right? That's a big one. AI isn't here to replace our jobs, right? It's here to make our jobs better. And if you can create a culture that rewards people and rewards efficiency and automation, then that way you're not creating a sense of fear, right? And you want to create a culture where people are excited to use this technology that is new and try and understand it better in order to help benefit the business, right? And make everyone's lives easier, right? So just kind of ingraining that in the culture, right? And understanding that, sure, it's something new and things may change, but we need to embrace the change, right, in order to be successful moving forward.
Great. Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it looks like we don't have any additional questions. We know a lot of folks jumped on late, so we plan to send the full recording out for you to check out the full conversation today. Again, we look forward to hosting our Let's Talk Workday series on a monthly basis. Each month we'll focus on different topics. We may invite customers to join us and share their Workday success story. So we definitely want to make sure that you catch more next month, and we look forward to you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.